Hey guys, while we're kicking everything off this morning for the message, make your way to 1 Corinthians chapter 16. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, we're going to be there in just a moment, but I want to make mention of a couple of things. One that I certainly don't want to overlook today is I know this week we will be celebrating Veterans Day, and I like to just say a thank you to those who have served our country. So if you are willing to stand, if you have served our country in any capacity, veterans for certain, would you please stand? We'd love to just honor you and just give you a round of applause. So all of those who served, thank you. Thank you. We do appreciate those who serve to make our lives free and good, and grateful to have all of you who are here still with us. So thank you for being here today. A couple of other things. If you noticed when you walked up to the church today, we are kicking off our Grace Delivered program today. That is our Christmas mission opportunity. So we're kicking it off today. That means you can adopt, shop, and deliver. You can go out today if you haven't already. You can adopt a family or a need that we have represented out there with some of our mission partnerships. We have partnered with 3 different mission organizations that we regularly partner with. They have curated needs based on the people that they serve, and we are coming alongside them, and we are sponsoring these families in different needs. So if you've not stopped by Grace Delivered, please do that. Pick up one of the packets, pick up a bag that you're going to fill. So you're going to adopt today, you're going to shop, fill the bag with all the stuff, then you're going to deliver it back to the church, and we're going to bless these families for Christmas this year. So I hope you can get involved in that. And we are on in a season right now in our church that we call 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting. We do this every year in November, starting with the first Sunday in November, and we wrap up just right before Thanksgiving. And so I just want to encourage you, if you've been able to start this process with us of prayer and fasting, I want to just encourage you to continue. If you have not gotten on the bandwagon yet, then I just want you to know today we're kicking off 14 days of prayer and fasting. So you can start today because we want you to get involved in this. And this is one of those seasons that if you've never fasted and prayed before, it really can sharpen your focus on God. It's a great way to train and discipline yourself to say, this normal life I live, the things that I kind of count on regularly, like eating 3 meals a day, by cutting 1 meal a day out and carving out that time to pray, it just heightens my awareness of who God is, His provision for me, and it allows me to just focus my prayers in a particular direction. So the prescribed method that we're taking this 21 days is skip 1 meal a day for 21 days and be off social media for all 21 days. That's what we're asking you to do. Modify as needed. So there's grace in everything. This doesn't earn you a spot with God, but this is a great opportunity to apply a spiritual discipline to your life. So I hope that you will join and do that with us, and we'll have a great month. And I will just tell you personally, every year I see answers to prayer all year long after these 21 days. It's pretty amazing to see that. So I hope that you'll get involved in that. And then because I said that I would, happy anniversary tomorrow to my wife. We'll have been married 24 years tomorrow. She said, you don't have to tell everybody, they don't care. I care. So anyways, happy anniversary to my wife tomorrow. Hey, open your Bibles, 1 Corinthians chapter 16. As you make your way there, you can also open up your Church Center app that we've been pushing. That we have now uploaded notes into the Church Center app. If you don't have the app, get this on your phone. All things Grace Valley, go here. It will give you ways you can register for events and different opportunities to get involved. You can actually do your online giving through this app as well. But we also have sermon notes uploaded. So it's a way to kind of take care of the digital side of notes if you're a digital person. If you are a good old-fashioned pen and paper person, we have these for you. These are listening guides that you can take notes on. And I really encourage you to take notes today. We started this series last week called Enough. And really open this whole series with the idea of addressing our enough issues. We all have them. We all have enough issues where it's hard to know when enough is enough in any particular area of our lives. We all have our different issues. We all have our different struggles, but we all need to know what it means to live with an enough is enough mindset. When can we finally be content with things? And particularly, like we've described on this in the series, to break the curse of cash, comfort, and control. Because if there's anything that competes with God in our lives, it would be cash, comfort, and control. Those things that we sort of lean on so heavily, they become curses in our lives. Everyone in here can attest to the curse of cash, comfort, and control, because there are major losses that we suffer in life because we put the wrong thing first. Because we become too consumed with our finances, relationships get pushed to the side. Because we're too consumed with our own comfort, we sometimes don't get out of our comfort zone. We don't push ourselves enough, and so we forfeit opportunities. And then because we think we should control everything, we are all control freaks. Because we want to control everything, we forfeit our trust in God, and we forfeit watching God do the things that only He can do on the altar of the things that we're able to do, which is so far less than the way God wanted us to live. And so today we're gonna continue this journey of understanding how we can live with some amount of true contentment. And I'm not talking about the contentment that robs you in other areas of life. Some people are kind of negatively content. They're content, and so they don't work hard, and they don't set any goals, and they don't have any aspirations. I'm not talking about that type of contentment. I'm talking about a type of contentment that you're settled, that God is in control. It's a confident contentment. And that's the contentment we're after. And so here, I want you to write this down. Enough will never be enough in your life until you settle the tug of war in your soul between God and money. I told you last week, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this later in the message, but in the 6 years of Grace Valley Church, I have never done a series on giving. And for a lot of the same reasons why you probably don't like it when pastors do series on giving, because it pushes on that part of our lives. It's like, oh, I don't know. Like, we don't want, first of all, no one wants church to be all about money. And so it's a stress sometimes as a pastor to go, when do I teach about money? Because I don't want it to be this way for you. I don't want you to have to worry like, oh, I invited a friend today and here's the pastor talking about money. I get that. I don't want you to have to face that. At the same time, I also know that if I don't address the issues surrounding money in our lives, particularly this battle that we have in our souls over God and money, if I don't address that, that is a critical point of discipleship. It's a critical point of you trusting in God in your life. So if I don't address it, then I'm not being a good pastor, because a major topic of the Bible is money. It's a major topic. Jesus talked profusely about it. New Testament authors talked profusely about it. There's so much in the Bible about our finances, because I really believe that if there's a contender for an idol in our lives, especially in our world today and particularly in this community, it will be money. And so we really need to settle this battle that goes on in our soul. And is there a better time to talk about this than right now? We are going into the Christmas season. And if you have children that you're trying to be good parents to, you feel the tug of war immediately, because your kids, probably like mine, send you a list. They have a note on their phone of all the stuff they want for Christmas, and they forward you that list. And you, for whatever reason, feel sort of obligated to get it for them. I'm just gonna get everything my kids want. I want them to be happy. At what point do you just draw a line and you go, okay, if I don't get them what they want, the last thing every parent wants is an unhappy child on Christmas morning. It's the last thing any parent wants. But where's the line? See, and there's that tug of war again. And countless people go into major, major credit card debt this time of year, chasing a moving target. How can I make my kids happy? Or how can I impress everyone in our family with certain gifts and things like this? When will enough be enough? So we have to settle this. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, let me give you the backstory here. Last week, we talked about 2 Corinthians chapter 8. If you weren't here, go back and listen. But if you were here, I'll just catch you up real quick. 2 Corinthians chapter 8 was Paul following up on this ministry need that he had presented to the Corinthians. And he was following up because they hadn't followed through. They had not done what they said they were gonna do, which is kind of every pastor's struggle. People are quick to say, oh, we support the church. We love what's going on here. But they don't follow through with that commitment, with the financial commitment. And so in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, which is the second letter to the Corinthians, Paul's addressing, hey, I want you to be more like the Macedonians. I want you to get better, grow in this grace of giving. Well, where did this start? It started in 1 Corinthians chapter 16 when the need was originally presented. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because when it comes to spiritual conversations around giving, one of the hardest things for people to swallow or to deal with or understand is giving to the church. How is that supposed to work? We all understand charity. And most of us have a good relationship with the idea of giving to the poor or giving to a need as we see it, that kind of thing. But giving to the church, sometimes that ruffles feathers, that bothers people. How do we give to the church? 1 Corinthians 13 outlines what it means and what it looks like to give to the church. Church giving is actually described right here in 1 Corinthians 16. So I want us to go through this because giving to the church is really not the issue. The real issue is the tug of war in our soul over God and money. That's the issue. And I believe 1 Corinthians 16 is going to help us. So here we go. Verse 1. Write this down. Number 1, giving that is ministry focused. Church giving should be giving that is ministry focused. Look in verse 1. Now, about the collection for the Lord's people, do what I told the Galatian churches to do. Now, it's a great way to open this whole conversation. About the offering. Isn't that the question? Like, about the offering. He's bringing up the whole issue because there are questions about the offering. How is this supposed to work? What does it look like to get a collection, to bring an offering? Well, he says, about the collection for the Lord's people. The offering is meant to fuel ministry. That's what it's for. All of our giving to the church should be with the understanding, a mindset of ministry. We are accomplishing ministry. We are helping people. We are doing ministry in our community. We're doing things for God's kingdom. That was the assumption Paul's making here about the collection for the Lord's people. And so I want to encourage you, when you give to the church, whether you write a check or you do online giving or however you do it, or put something down in the box, in the black box, when you give, I want you to think about the return on investment, the life change that you are giving toward. That is what the biblical ethic of giving is. In fact, we can very easily replace the word giving or offering with the word investment, because that's what we're doing. We are investing in the kingdom of God. That we are investing in the life change that occurs through the different ministries of the church. And so we're making that investment. It's the return on investment that God calls us to. And I know that at our church, one of the things I sometimes wonder if we should, some of you probably grew up in churches where they passed a plate down the aisle. And we don't do that. We do the black boxes or we do online giving, which I think is great because I think what we've maybe addressed is some of the discreetness of giving that I think, obviously, Jesus talks about. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing. This whole idea of being quiet about your giving, being humble in your giving, that we're not showing off when we give. And I also think passing a plate has this weird temptation, this curiosity temptation. I don't know if you've ever done this. Maybe it's just me, but I would always be in the row behind the row in front of me, and I would always be curious what's going on in the plate as I see it go by. Like, who's putting stuff in there? Don't you do that? Like, you wonder, like, who's digging in their pocket and putting something in there? Like, you want to know. And there's this kind of strange relationship with seeing the offering. Just seeing it creates this weird dynamic. So I do think it's good that we don't pass a plate necessarily, but I also think it's difficult because we've sort of excluded the offering from our worship, which it was intended to be a part of worship. He says, when you come together, this collection for those people, when we come together, this idea is that the offering is part of worship. We've turned worship into sort of a monochrome definition, and we call worship singing. And there's so much more to worship than just music and singing. There's this act of giving, this act of bringing an offering. So here's what I just want to ask you to do. As often as you can remind yourself to do it, whether it's online or in the black boxes, I just want you to whisper a prayer every time you give. If you're clicking the button on online giving, or if you're dropping something in the box, just a whisper a prayer. God, use this for your kingdom. God, use this for your kingdom. Use this for your kingdom. Just be intentional to make it worship. And I think that begins to shape our heart and aim our heart a little more toward the things of God. And so then the second half of verse 1 says, do what I told the Galatian churches to do. Now, why is that important? Because Paul actually outlined a procedure. That the original language, the word, when he says do what the Galatian churches do, that's actually the word for procedure. The idea is that there's a procedure, an outlined methodology, which is very interesting because the next few verses, Paul actually explains the methodology of church giving. there's actually a prescribed method. There's a philosophy to church giving that he tells us. So he says, I want you to do what I told the Galatian churches to do. There's sort of all churches are giving this way. This is a way we do church giving. And so let's look what it says. So write this down. Number 2, giving that is systematic. First is giving that is ministry focused. The idea is we're thinking about ministry with our giving. And the second is ministry that is systematic. He says, on the first day of the week, verse 2, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income, saving it up so that when I come, no collections have to be made. So let's talk about this. He says on the first day of every week. The systematic way of giving was to give weekly. Why weekly? Well, in that culture, most people got a paycheck every week. They were paid on a weekly basis. Now that's different in our culture. Most of us get paid like every 2 weeks or something like that. Maybe because of investments and different things you do, you don't realize your income until the end of the year and things like that. There's some odd ways that we give. But systematically, how can we understand this? The idea is that we give at the same rate in which we earn. And so one of the ways you can look at giving is at whatever rate I earn it, that is also the rate or the frequency in which I give. So if you earn money weekly, give weekly. If you earn money monthly, give monthly. That was the systematic expectation of giving, was they were aligning giving with earning, which is a great way for us to look at our giving, because you guys know the longer that money sits in your hands, the more it starts to feel like yours, like it feels like mine. When the truth is, God has called us to see that money first as his, a stewardship that we have. And so we give some of that money back. We're going to come to that in just a minute. But this worship that we have around giving is built on this idea. See, they would also gather on the first day of the week. So this is interesting dynamic, kind of culturally what happened. The first day of the week was always considered Sunday because the Jews would celebrate the Sabbath on Saturday, and then they would be back to work on Sunday. But when Christianity sort of was born after the resurrection of Jesus, Christians said, no, the first day of the week for us is the resurrection day. It's Sunday. That's the first day of the week. That's the Lord's day. And so the subtle shift is where Judaism looked at Sunday primarily as a work day, nothing wrong with that, but that's how they looked at it. Saturday was rest day, Sunday's back to work. Christianity started differently. Sunday is the Lord's day. And that set the whole understanding of the next 7 days. It put that new thought into motion. The idea is, no, on the first day of the week, and because they still had to go to work on Sundays, early in the morning they would meet and gather, and then they would go to work, because that's how the culture operated. It wasn't until really Western civilization that we earmarked both Saturday and Sunday as a weekend, as a day off. For the largest majority of history, it was Saturday, and then you work Sunday through Friday. Western civilization changed that because it honored both Judaism and Christianity. And so now, our first day of the week, we consider it Sunday, and we come to church, we honor God, we bring our giving, and we set the week in motion saying, God, you're first. And that's the subtle shift. Work is not first, God, you're first. And everything we do all week is based on this idea, God, that you're first. And so I just want you to know, this is what God wants to teach us even today. Some of you need to look at your life, every bit of it, your family, your marriage, your children, your job, as God, you're first in all of this. And so what do we do first? We take out of our earnings, God, an offering. And we give to say, God, you're first. And everything that I have to do this week is based on this idea that you're first. And so we give systematically. Now, I know there will be people who will raise an objection to systematic giving based on the idea of spontaneous giving. Come on, Andy, systematic giving feels a little boring. What about spontaneous giving? There's something about spontaneous, or some people call it spirit-led giving, that feels like it's more genuine or something. I was led by the Spirit and I wrote a check and helped somebody out, or I did this and I helped somebody out. I want to just say, I think spirit-led giving, spontaneous giving is awesome. In fact, I think you should do that. But I don't think it should replace systematic giving. I think systematic giving sets our floor, and spontaneous and spirit-led giving goes beyond that. Because discipline will outpace spontaneity every day of the week. Discipline is what God calls us to, and then that spirit-led stuff becomes a lot clearer. In fact, of all the people I know who give systematically, tithing, let's say, of the most kind of godly people I know who tithe, they are far more sensitive to the leadership of the Spirit than those who don't. Why? Because they've already said, God, as a baseline, we put you first. As a baseline, God, you're first. So that only heightens a spiritual sensitivity. So I would just tell you, for all of you who would say, no, the Bible, New Testament, it talks about spirit-led giving. Yes, it does, but that's not all it talks about, because right here, we're in the New Testament reading about systematic giving. It talks about both. I think systematic giving sets our floor, and spirit-led giving is above and beyond. So I think we need both in our lives. So spontaneous or spirit-led giving should always be included, but as an addition, not a replacement for disciplined, systematic giving. Now, I want to focus us to a different phrase he says in here. He says, each of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income. I'll come back to that in a minute. Saving it up so that when I come, no collections have to be made. So this saving it up idea, it's brilliant. Have you ever saved any money? It's a brilliant idea, isn't it? Because when you save money, you have some for some of the unexpected things. You have enough to where it lowers the pressure, the financial pressure you have. And I'll rob a line from Dave Ramsey. There is no pressure like financial pressure. All you have to do is feel a little and you just start to feel like your world's being crushed. So what does Paul say? He actually tells us, save it up. Who's he talking to? He's not talking to individuals. He's talking to the church. See, the methodology of a church should include saving up money so that you have some set aside for needs that come up. And Paul was particularly interested in this. He said, so that when I come and visit you, there's not a lot of pressure to raise a bunch of money all of a sudden. Instead, the church has reserves, has money set aside to meet the needs as they arise. Now, I will tell you, if there's anything I feel like we did pretty well with the finances of Grace Valley Church is we started this way. We applied this principle to the beginning days of our church, and we saved up money. And what that allowed was it allowed our leadership to be able to lead without having to desperately beg for money. I can't tell you how many pastors I know or ministers, people who work on church staffs, who have told me stories like, yeah, at one point I had to go without a paycheck because we just didn't have it and the giving had dropped and we just didn't have the money to pay our people. It's an awful place to be. And I'll just tell you, just candidly, Grace Valley Church, we're an employer. We have 14 people on our staff, 14 families that depend on this church. And I don't ever want to have a conversation with a single one of them to say, yeah, giving dropped this week, so we're going to cut your paycheck. I don't ever want to have that conversation because the problem is really an issue of, are we saving? Are we managing the finances well enough so that we're good stewards of understanding that life is like a roller coaster? There are ups and downs. And some Sundays, the giving is less than other Sundays. And so instead of that causing a crisis, saving it up protects the church and the ministries of the church so that those needs we're always able to meet those needs. It keeps us in a much more safe place in terms of meeting needs. So proper saving and financial stewardship reduces the financial pressure and allows for a church to teach and cultivate giving as a part of discipleship instead of desperation. And I think that's what I think most of us have reacted to. When churches bring up money, it is almost always in the context of desperation. There's some problem we have to solve, some major issue we have to fund. But if we can save up a little money, then we can teach giving as a spiritual discipline without the desperation. And I just want to tell you, that's where we are at Grace Valley Church today. We are not in a desperate place. We're actually in a very healthy place financially because of the way the leadership has managed and stewarded the resources. We are able to fund ministry appropriately. We have money set aside for different opportunities that come up. And by the grace of God, we're in a place where we might even be able to do some big moves, one of which is pay this building off early. We've been on we had a goal initially when we got into this building that we wanted to pay it off in 5 years. I think we can beat that significantly. I would just encourage you, I'd love to invite you to do this. If this is something that you feel compelled to do, I would invite you to think about this, pray about it. That you would consider some kind of special gift or offering between now and the end of the year to help us pay this building off. We've been pretty aggressive with paying it down, and I would love to pay it off early sometime next year. And when we do that, we would be debt-free as an organization, which is a pretty amazing thing. You know, I've learned, I've been in church for my entire life. I have never been a part of a church that paid off its mortgage. Never. And maybe some of you have. I don't even know what we do. What do we do? I've heard you burn the mortgage statement. I heard that you do that. I don't know if we're gonna burn anything in here. I don't know. But I want us to be able to do that because that opens up more resources for more ministry. Now, will we be debt-free forever? I don't know. I only can anticipate probably that we will have to do some other project down the road. I don't know. But I would love for us to accomplish this one. But we've been able to do this in a way that hasn't been a strain on the church. All because of this one line, saving it up. Because we saved it up. We were wise in the use of the resources. So number 3, giving that is percentage-based. He says this, he says, on the first day of the week, you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income. Okay, so we know that we should give systematically, we should give in a regular frequency, but then he says, this is how much you should give. You should give in keeping with your income. This is percentage-based giving. The idea that we give a percentage of our income, systematically percentage-based giving. So this is how you level the playing field. If you're a very wealthy person and you give a percentage, then you are in your lower income and you give a percentage, you are equally giving based on your income. It creates a wonderful sense of equality throughout the church. Everybody doing their part, doing a percentage. Now, there's this idea swirling around today that somehow tithing, which is 10% of your income, giving 10% of your income to the church, there's this idea swirling around that tithing no longer applies. Because we're in the New Testament now, Andy. We're past that. I'm just gonna tell you, I think that whole argument is flawed. Based on the fact of 1 Corinthians 16, where he says, in keeping with your income, which is undoubtedly percentage, and if you were to ask Paul, now I know he doesn't define a percentage right here, but if you were to ask Paul, who grew up Jewish, about what percent should we be giving? I just about guarantee you Paul would say 10%. Because he was raised in Judaism, which honored a tithe or 10% of your income. So I don't think tithing has been removed somehow. I think it is still the baseline of percentage giving. You know what's interesting? Studies have been done. In America, average across the board, every type of person, every income level across the board, the average family in America accidentally gives away 6% of their income. You know, like when some kid at the school is raising money and knocks on your door, can you sponsor the baseball team? And you do a little something, and you know, all the people, the thing at work, someone's doing something fundraising. Oh, you sponsor St. Jude Marathon. All those things that we do, it results in the average family in America giving about 6% of their income accidentally. That's the average. Now, if I were talking just directly to my own children, there's 2 things I would tell my kids. I don't want you to be accidental, and I don't want you to be average. That's what I would teach my own children. So I would just tell you, if kind of baseline, 6% of your income, It's kind of what everybody does, and not necessarily people who believe in Jesus. I think percentage giving, particularly giving a tithe, is still the strongest understanding of systematic giving throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New. And I think it gives us an opportunity to fight this accidental, average approach that a lot of people take. And I've said this before, and I want to keep saying this so that I'm being transparent and you understand this. Our family tithes. We give 10% of our income. Our entire married lives, that's what we do. Before Drew, Cooper, Wesley, Ford, or Joshua gets a dime, before Andy or Amanda gets a dime, we give God 10% of our income. That's set aside in advance. We already know. And so we're modeling that. That's what we do. We give spontaneously, Spirit-led above that. Because we like it. I know it sounds crazy. It is fun to give. It is fun to bless other people. It is fun to be a part of watching God work. And so I want to encourage you to consider giving, not just systematically, but giving based on a percentage. And I would actually encourage you to consider giving 10% to this church, to give your tithe. I'm not gonna beg you. I'm not gonna shame you if you don't. There's not gonna be a group of the people who do and a group of people who don't. We're not doing any of that stuff. I just want to encourage you to, because I think that is what the Bible teaches. And I think when you do, you will be blessed. Now, I know what everybody says. I don't know if I can make 10% work. I'll just tell you, everyone who tithes has said the same thing. Giving away 10% of your income is hard for everyone. And it looks impossible on paper. I don't know how to explain it other than it's God math, but it's not human math. God math, it works out. Ask anybody who tithes. And I believe it does this other thing in your life where it puts God first in such a way at one of the most fundamental, one of the most fundamental battles of your life. You are saying, God, you are more important. But that requires trust. It requires trust that God's going to provide. It requires trust that God's way is actually better than my way. Trust is our problem. So if you go with me on this, if you can flip back to Exodus chapter 32. Last week we talked about the Israelites wandering in the wilderness and they complained about the manna that God was providing every day. There's another situation I want to look at in Exodus 32. So this is the situation where Moses is up on the mountain. But before this happens, I just want to give you the backstory. Moses, his brother Aaron, who's the priest, a handful of other leaders, and all the elders of the community. There was about 75 people that actually went on the mountain. God invited Moses and all these leaders to go onto the mountain to meet with God. This is crazy. Go back and look at Exodus 23. So all 75 people plus Moses go up on the mountain to meet with God. God appears in human form, in a bodily form. He appears to these 75 men and has a meal with them. This is mind-blowing. The God of the universe comes down and has a meal, sits at a table and has dinner with these guys. Only after dinner, God goes further up the mountain and invites Moses to come up. Special meeting a little higher up on the mountain. Now, we pick up in the middle of this meeting. When the people, this is verse 1, Exodus 32, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, they gathered around Aaron, his brother, who was at dinner with God. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt. So Moses is having a meeting with God on the mountain. We don't know what happened to that fellow. So, hey, Aaron, make us some gods who will lead us. Do you hear the absurdity in this? Oh, you need a God to lead you. Because the God of the Israelites, the God of the universe, sent 10 different plagues to the Pharaoh in Egypt and freed you out of captivity. He parted the waters of the Red Sea and you walked through on dry ground. Oh, he appeared every single day as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to lead you and guide you. And oh yeah, Aaron and 75 other people went on the mountain and had dinner with God. And you're needing a God to lead you? I would get really frustrated at the Israelites reading this, except for I see that same tendency inside of me. It is all too familiar. Where I know, I can tell you, I can rattle off prayers God has answered, miracles that he's given, provisions that he's provided in ways I cannot explain. Life change, just absolute rescue in the lives of other people. Major life change, transformation that I have seen with my eyes in the lives of other people through the power of God. And yet I still fail to trust him. I feel the need to maintain control. I feel the need to guard my comfort zone and make sure I have enough money in my bank account. So I can read this and get really frustrated at the Israelites, but it's really a great description of me. Then Aaron says this, verse 2, take the gold rings from your ears off your wives and sons and daughters and bring them to me. So this gold, this jewelry they were wearing, you remember where they got it? When God sent the final plague in Egypt, he said, all you're gonna need to do is you're gonna turn to your neighbors, your Egyptian neighbors, and say, hey, can you give us a little bit of support for our journey? And they're just gonna offload their jewelry to you. God orchestrated this whole thing. So all the gold they have was handed to them by the influence of God, turning the hearts of the Egyptians toward the Israelites on their way out the door of Egypt. So all the gold they had was literally handed to them by the power of God. They're gonna gather all this gold and they're gonna take it over here to Aaron. Aaron is going to do verse 3. They took the gold rings, brought them to Aaron. Verse 4, Aaron melted the gold down, molded it into the shape of a calf. And when the people saw it, they exclaimed, oh Israel, these are the gods who brought us out of the land of Egypt. So he makes a golden calf. And they say, okay, they get the calf out there, set it up. They say, this is the God, here he is, that brought you out of Egypt. How quickly they forgot. How easily their heart was turned. And again, we can pick on the Israelites, except for this describes you and me. All the ways God's provided for us. I looked it up. I asked AI. AI helped me look something up. Collierville and Germantown are in the top 1% of income earners in the world. Germantown and Collierville. Top 1%. Isn't it absurd how much we worry about money? You've arrived. Let me just say it. You made it. You're at the top of that ladder. You've reached the pinnacle. You've crested the mountain. You are at the top. Just by way of where you live and how much money you make a year. You've arrived. Interesting though. Doesn't feel like you've arrived, does it? Because there's still something unsettled down in your soul. There's still a battle going on. There's still a tug of war over God and money. Why? I want to trust him, but I don't know. Why would you not know? The blessing of God in your life is that you are the richest people on earth in this room. Isn't that amazing? We did it. Spiked the ball in the end zone. We made it. It is absurd that we who live like we live would ever question God's faithfulness, that we would ever question his provision, that we would ever question his care or his goodness. It's absurd. We're like Israelites who are taking all the provision that God gave them and we're dumping it out, melting it down and making an idol out of it. That's what we're doing as a culture. Completely forgetting the God who brought us out of Egypt by his power. Well, the meeting that Moses was in with God, verse 7, The Lord told Moses, quick, go down the mountain. Your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Yep, that's what happens when we stop trusting in God. We go on a journey of self-corruption because we aren't good enough to govern our lives. That's plain and simple. We're just not good enough. So we are self-corrupted. We turn to our own ways. It's interesting. There's a Psalm 106:20 says, referring back to the golden calf, they exchanged the glory of God for an image of an ox that eats grass. Isn't that interesting? So this golden calf was probably an ox calf, and so they said, and that particular animal represented strength and virility. It was a picture of something that they wanted to represent themselves. And so they make this. And the interesting thing, the psalmist is right. They exchanged the glory of God, the God who brought them out of Egypt, for what? For this animal that eats grass. Why would he say eats grass? Why is that important? Because this thing that they were worshiping still depends on the God of the universe who makes grass. It's a dependent creature. And we have the opportunity to worship a divine God. So my question for you, what's your golden calf? We all have them. Maybe it's your investment account. Maybe it's your savings account. Maybe it's your real estate holdings, the toys you park in your garage, the number of followers you have, the business deals you have in the works, that Louis Vuitton purse, the diamonds you wear, the vacations you go on, the hunting clubs you're a part of, your bourbon collection. Those overpriced carbon fiber bicycles that I would know nothing about. Don't we do that? Don't we collect things to represent what's important to us? Of course we do. What would it look like for you to do it today, to settle the tug of war in your soul between God and money? I will tell you, I think about the only predictable way is when you take your money and give it back to God. You break the hold that money has on you. It's the only way. When you let go of some of these precious resources you have and you give them back to God and say, God, I want to invest back in your kingdom. You've invested in me, I want to invest back in you. When you do that, that trust in God multiplies across your life, without a doubt. So, this church is not in a desperate place. I say this a little bit harsher than I would normally, just to make a point. We don't need your money. As a pastor, I have to have the same faith that you have in your personal life for this church. God is in charge of funding the ministry of this church. But I do want to invite you to invest, to be a part of things here. I want to invite you to tithe, to give 10% of your income to the Lord. Systematically, percentage-based giving. If you don't want to, that's okay. Grace to you. It's okay. But I want to invite you to. But before any of that is even important, we need to make a shift in our heart to put him first. We're about to sing a song that's going to serve as our kind of closing prayer, if you will. The song, I'm sorry to go a little bit long, but the song comes out of a church in London. This church was kind of an up-and-coming church. The explosive growth, lots of people were coming to the church, and they realized that maybe some of the excitement of growth and some of the dynamics of growth began to be more important than even the worship of God. They kind of lost sight of God in the midst of all of the things. And so the pastor told the worship leader, hey, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna strip it all down. We're taking down the screens, we're taking down the lights, we're telling the band not to show up, and it's just gonna be you and a guitar, and you're gonna lead us in worship. And the worship leader wrote a song called The Heart of Worship. It says, I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. And I think if we're gonna really settle this tug of war between God and money in our hearts, we gotta get back to that statement. God, it's all about you. Because money tries to tell us it's all about us, but it's really all about him. I'm not gonna make Jacob Newcomb fire the band and play a guitar because he doesn't know how to play one. He plays a great air guitar. He plays a great air guitar. But he is gonna lead us in this song. And I just wanna invite you to lean into this song. Let it represent your heart. Let me pray. Father, thank you for this morning, for the truth of your word. And Lord, I pray as we sing these words, God, that you would stir this truth in our heart. God, that we would be people who are not ruled by money, but we are ruled by our Heavenly Father. God, we confess our golden calves to you. We are sorry that we have put other things in front of you. Would you forgive us? Would you bring us back to you now in Jesus' name? Amen. Let's stand and worship.